and welcome back to Talk to Pastor Chris, Relationship Wednesday, right here on your favorite TV station, KTN, and we are on Life and Style, talking matters of the heart. I've got my panel over here, I've got the audience right over there, and we're doing topics. We're talking about, I asked a question, would you date a man who has no job? And it's taken so many angles. And Gerald wanted to say something before we took the break.
Yes, I wanted to give you a guy code that we do not have a problem with you having money for as long as money doesn't have you. In short, you should not let money be the control of everything in your life. I mean, you want to marry some guy, the guy looks nice, the guy is your class, the guy is what you've been dreaming about.
What is this about the guy is your class?
Your class.
So does it mean that you can't marry a guy who is below your class, whatever that class means?
Yes, because now when you talk about class, it means this is what you believe in. A class doesn't really go towards one direction. It's diverse. Like if I'm living in the ghetto, my class belongs to the ghetto. I'm gonna be wearing things like looks like ghetto. If I'm living up there,
all right, we're at the Michael Joseph Center right now. So if I live around Wayaki Way over here, so I shouldn't date anybody who's coming from where is that? Who's coming from Lucky Summer or something?
If that is the kind of a class, if that is the kind of a class that you dream about being your husband, and this person has the qualities, go for it. But you see, there are people.
Gerald, that no, I'm not going to let you go past that thing of a class, because what do you mean if that is the kind of a class?
Maybe
is that a fair?
It's the externals
I would
again.
say,
it's the thing
yeah,
I'm
it's
talking
the external,
about.
the external that you look at. Because every person, when you want to get a spouse, there is, besides you being the you that is inside, there is what speaks before you say. Style is a way, style is a way of saying who you are without talking.
The style could be staged. I mean, there's guys here who do bling bling.
Yes.
And I'm not sure they'll be doing bling bling in 20 years.
Yes.
I'm not sure they'll be doing that in 20 years. I think, probably it's just, it could be something like,
Yeah, and
that is
like,
what...
To be honest, if you line up, for example, if you put guys in a room, for example, and you take the guys who live in Ololo, Nini, Oyole, Nini, and you dress them in like pinstrip suits and all this type of thing, and then you take the guys who live in the Mudegas and all that, and you dress them in something else, right? And then you tell someone, have a conversation with these people. And then you gravitate and you like the one with the pinstrip suit and all those things, and you fall in love with them. And then now the big reveal comes, and they tell you, by the way, this is Angu, Izin is a show. Up on your naishi. Will you now say, by the way, I don't want you? That's what the class na hizi mambo za tabaka zinafanyia watu.
Exactly, and that's what we call class. Define class and style is different. Style is what they were wearing, what you saw that time. But when you go into their life, you're now realizing, this is the class you've placed. Are you middle class? Are you lower class? Are you higher? Are you?
But that is what I still have a problem with, because we're sitting here, 5 of us.
Yes.
And you can't tell who lives where.
No, it's not about living. It's about what where you've placed yourself.
You've got to be very clear, Gerald, because you're talking about middle class, lower class, and all of that, which then gives me an economic. For me, I look at it like, what are you talking about is economic.
Yes.
So there's somebody who lives here, here. What if we went to class? We went to class at university, and somebody came from Babadogo, somebody else from Karen. We're in the same university. We're in KU, studying the same course. Mentally we can engage, even though we live in different environments. Does it mean that we cannot date just because one lives on the other side and one lives on this side?
Apparently.
Maybe I came from Babadogo, but I was topping that class academically.
Apparently, that is now the generation we are living in. The truth and the reality of the matter is, when guys, they first look at, that's why we are discussing this topic, because you realize they will look at you first, then want to judge you, then after that they want now to go deeper. Like she said, you find that now you want to become friends, and then you want to know more about the guy, and after some time you realize, no, this guy is not what exactly I thought, and then you run, because you've learned that they were in a different social class.
Now I want to go to there's this gentleman, he's been waiting. He wants to say something.
In Kiswahili they say mwanaume ni effort, So that's my first point I want to put across, The second point, in a relationship, being, I mean, work or job, it must be mutual, for the guy to have a job, to bring an income, and the lady too. All right, because we are looking at this at a perspective that a man does not have a job. What about the woman who doesn't have a job? You see,
So
but now we are
let me
talking
ask
about
you,
the guy.
Brian, would you date a woman who has no job?
Never.
Right.
See, that's me.
But
That's
he's
me.
being honest.
Yeah, I'm being honest. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to have someone who's just in the house. I wake up daily to go work. You see. So my other point is that I think it's Mr. Gerald. Gerard, you are in una insight the other the women, eh? Una insight. Una insight. Hakuna class. It's all about mutual effort. Eh? You see something see something from the inner part. Eh? Usiangalia ati wewe anatoka wapi. The class thing sipendi mimi.
I'm an independent woman, but I'd feel safer and better if the man also is providing.
It doesn't mind your social upbringing or your background or your economic background, but as long as you have a chemistry, you have a common ground that you can strike, you have common interests that bring you together, then yeah, it can work out.
So as this lady or this guy is looking up to someone who is there, who has already made it, what do you have as you are going to that person? Eh? You should, as in someone should have something of your own. Eh? You should have built something in you, so that when you go there to that person, you add value.
Yes.
To make it better.
And that something is not money,
But
right?
you know,
Yeah,
I think
we are in
not always
agreement.
money.
because
We're
I
in
want to go to
agreement.
the next topic, but I think that there are a lot of people who are very brilliant, but they live in Kangemi.
That's true.
Exactly.
Very brilliant, but they live in Madare North.
That's right.
So that you cannot use that environment to judge them. It may just be at this particular time they don't earn enough to live anywhere else.
Yeah.
But they are some of the most brilliant brains.
Absolutely.
Then you also have people who have grown up in the upmarket, but they're the most spoiled. You pull them out of their parents' environment,
They don't survive
they
there.
cannot produce anything.
Na wengine ni wezi.
Yeah, they can't produce anything. So I think it would not be very correct, you know, to put that judgment on classes. And I think that if a man, like David did say, if a man has a vision, if a man knows where he wants to go and puts the effort, as Brian is saying, you know, towards it, because it's one thing to have a vision, it's another thing to actually work towards it. The people who can tell you everything that they want to do, but they never do anything about it, they have meticulous visions, but they never do anything about it. And if this man is willing to begin from where he is, not waiting for anything else, I think that's a good man. So ladies out there, don't make people become liars, have to fake it just because their heart has loved you and now they want to get you, but then they've got to fake it so as to get you. No, we got to appreciate people who are brilliant. They've got ideas. They may not have resources, but they put themselves, you know, they exert their energy to work to do something productive. I think that that's a good man for me. Yeah. Now, we want to talk about, you know, relationships where there is the extended family, how you blend these relationships. How do you deal with different relationships between step siblings? As different, like discipline from different parents. For example, how do I put it? If a man was married, had children, the woman had children, the mother had her own children, the father had his own children. They come together into this family. How are people supposed to blend? For example, now I want to discipline somebody, but the person I want to discipline, my wife came with him or came with her. Without dealing with that person different from how I deal with the children we have as both of us. Yeah. How are we supposed to blend?
I wouldn't treat them differently, but it's a very fine balance for them to know that they're loved and they're cared for, and that when they've made a mistake, they're being disciplined. It's a very thin line. So I think I would treat them the same, but when it comes to loving them, I'd also make them feel so loved. so that when I'm disciplining them, they wouldn't feel like I'm on their case too much or I'm discriminating against them.
The way the old generation used to like take care of each other, the society, how people used to discipline each other, that was the best way to go about it actually. Because nowadays, the way you just leave a child to only their parents cannot always be there. I think it's the role of the society to actually, you know, step up and discipline everyone.
If you remember our days back, if an elder person find you are misbehaving, he'll cane you on the streets. Like me in the house, in my family, in my house now, my phone, my kids cannot touch my phone because they know phones. That phone is a restriction phone.
Ni kukanye mara mbili tatu the same thing. The fourth time, I'm going to beat you, whether you like it or not.
I think discipline it's tailor-made, if you ask me. The way you discipline even one of your own biological children is not necessarily the very same way you'll discipline the other. And this is the reason why I say that. For example, if you tell someone that, you know, go stand in a corner somewhere, and the other one, maybe for example, is afraid, or maybe is claustrophobic, is afraid of closed spaces, it'll go beyond even that discipline. You get what I'm saying? I think at the end of the day, discipline should be tailor-made and should be from a place of understanding. Otherwise, it stops being discipline and it kind of becomes torture.
All right.
You know, if you discipline someone just because, you know, umefanya kitu kibaya, I don't care if you came with my former wife or whatever, you're in my house, that stuff will not be beneficial to anyone. We have an African society of many people who've been disciplined, and look how many of us turned out. You know, we're the violent dudes. We have people who are throwing other people out of matatus. Some of those people were beaten growing up, you know, and they still carry those wounds. So I think even if they're coming from, you know, your ex-wife's family and they're your ex-wife's children or something, discipline them with an understanding that you want to make them better. You don't want to make them feel bad about themselves, but you want to make them know, one, they made a mistake, and two, create an environment for them to understand, okay, this is a mistake, this is just an action as a result of the mistake, but after this action, the relationship is maintained.
Now that you say that, you know, I remember a conversation that I had with some friends of mine, and they had this feeling that sometimes the most difficult people to discipline are children who were taken up as orphans. That when you take up orphans, whether it is your siblings' children or something like that, that they're usually very difficult to discipline because most of them will pull out the card that I'm being treated this way because I don't have my parents. How is somebody supposed to go around that?
I think it calls for a lot of understanding and a lot of trust, because you realize that different homes have the way they operate. Like for me, I've had that incident whereby you have to live with someone's child, but I would like them to understand that this is how we do things in our house.
Right.
That apart from the way I discipline my children, if you do something wrong, I will do the same. The same things I do to my children are the same things I will do to you. Not because I hate you, but because I have that responsibility over your life.
Right.
And once you gain their trust and understanding, I think things will come out well. Because most of the time, people who turn out to say or to blame, it's because they don't want to own whatever things they have done. But if at all you are true and you are doing it out of love and out of that parental guidance that really is bestowed upon you, I think they will understand it. But it comes as a process, a lot of understanding and gaining trust. Once you have that, I think now you can move on with the discipline part.
And what about the relationships between siblings? If your blood brother takes your shoes and goes away, he didn't ask you, he goes away. And if your stepbrother does the same, will you treat them the same way for doing the same thing?
My opinion about this would be treat everyone differently. I mean, treat everyone differently, even in the family. Because if he takes my shoes and he did not actually request for them, and there is no...
Who are we talking about, your brother or your stepbrother in this case?
My brother.
Okay.
If he took my shoes and he did not talk to me about it, and then he assumes that because I'm the brother, I'm going to be okay with that, then he's coming to find a different kind of argument at home. And if he's my stepbrother, probably I would treat it differently depending on why did you take it? You didn't have a shoe, or rather you took it just because you thought
So
it's
you
smarter.
treat your stepbrother nicer?
No, all of them will treat everyone differently. I'll look at why. The best way to handle a family, or maybe whether the family is extended or maybe you have siblings from another family, is always to deal with everyone differently. You cannot treat children the same and expect they will have this, because they don't have same expectations. You cannot treat people the same in a family and expect that you will have smooth running. You should be able to understand each and every member of the family. The reason why we have families is because we need closer, much more closer people to understand our closer worries.
No, especially when there's conflict, people go back to the awareness of who they are. I mean, we can all live together very well until there's some conflict. That's when I remember, but you're not even my sister. And yet every day we've been relating fine and actually introducing each other. I said, this is my sister. But then when we have conflict, then I get back there. How is somebody supposed to manage conflict and manage those, the way we go back into who we are? You know, I may not even verbalize it, but then I just feel like, to protect myself, I want to go back to who I am. People will say stuff like, that's not even my mother. That's not even my father. How are we supposed to manage the conflict in those seasons so that people remember that they need to stick together as a family?
Right, that's a great question. How can we manage conflict? First of all, I think it's becoming aware of the situation, and really, when you know who it is that you are, then you can be able to understand how to deal with other people. But especially in a family setup, and you have step brothers or step sisters. When it comes first to the disciplining and understanding their personalities, the way that you will handle child A or individual A versus individual B is definitely going to be different, and it's based upon you first getting to know how you're going to be able to solve these two different problems. So for example, I'll tell you, there's a time that I was reading about how they clustered them into 4 different personalities, and even as a parent, this is probably what I would apply, in that you'll have a child A who is the color, I'll use colors because I like colors, yellow, and they're very soft and they are sensitive, and they don't, when you shout at them, if you're correcting, they don't hear. They will really not understand, so they will actually shut down. And the way I would correct that particular child, perhaps, is probably even going down to their level, using guilt, perhaps. I'm letting them know I'm very disappointed. And for them, because that's their personality or what stands out most, they will actually hear better, as opposed to, let's say, child B, who is a personality color whereby they're always all over the place, they're jumpy, they're always, they're excited, they're fun. So if I talk to them like that, they really can't hear. Almost ADD, I can almost say that. So, keeping something that they like away from them is a better punishment for them, because they'll really get it. They'll be like, oh, you're telling me I can't go out with my friends now. Oh, I can't really go out and socialize. You're taking my phone away and my laptop and whatnot. So you see, when I understand that this child, this is how their personality is, then I'll use that which I know that they love the most anyways, to help correct them. And similarly, if it's a child who's very, very competitive, and they know that they always like to win all the time, and they're loud, and they are almost bully-like, and they always like to take things from others and whatnot, the way I'll correct them is obviously going to be different. So when I'm coming back down to managing this type of conflict at home, even as dealing with children that are for my other spouse, then I have to first sit down with my spouse, actually discuss with them, find out, all right, so how do you normally correct them? And if I don't like the way they do it, or maybe we disagree, then I would suggest, all right, I'll make suggestions as to how we can do it, and even ask them if we can try it out first and see if it works, right? Because of course I also don't want them to feel like, okay, now you want to be the cool parent, or the one that's the parent that's hated or something, right? So that's one way that obviously we can manage conflict in a family setup. And even amongst siblings, sitting them down together, depending on if that works best for them, understanding what has always worked best. Because maybe you come from a family where you don't sit down to discuss things. It's this and it's this,
Right.
and maybe in a different family setup, we sit down and we discuss things, and when we make them feel like they're adults enough to come up with their own solutions, and even ask For example, what do you think, you know, do you think you did the right thing? What would you do? Can we take this away from you
Does
now?
that work for African children?
I think to some extent, yes.
Does it work? Does it work for African children? Because
It's just enculturation, really. You know, I think wherever you
as
placed,
a John comes sit over here, so John, we're gonna have a talk with you. And John is 3 years. Does that work for?
Let me tell you, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised because certain things like how I was raised are not the very same way that I'll raise my kids. You know, and it's because the more you grow, the more
you know. When you're saying that, then the reason I'm smiling is there was a season when schools were banning, and then social media was awash with people saying, "You see, this is now the problem of how we are raising our children." Because in our days, we used to be caned, so we didn't ban schools. So people were beginning to say, you see now, this generation does not understand the cane. And people were actually saying that you need to get back the cane because outsiders' children are doing the kinds that they're doing. So I brought up that because you're saying...
But Chris, compare. On one side, schools are burning, right? And people will say, oh, it's this generation, this small generation. On the other side, people are looting billions, right? And they came from a generation where they were beaten, you know? One poison in a blue bottle and one poison in a red bottle is still poison. Right. You get that? Like, there's still people who are beaten badly, and they came out horribly. And there's some people who, in this generation, they weren't beaten, but they were talked to, and they will do remarkable things and become remarkable people. I think at the end of it, whether it's physical discipline, verbal discipline, or anything, at the heart of it should be restoring a sense of humanity.
All right.
Because that is the key factor. People will make mistakes and do wrong things because that aspect of humanity was lost. But even as you're punishing someone and telling them, okay, you've made a mistake, umefanya kitu mbaya sana, you know, labda lala chini uchapwe zako, or at the end of the day you're withdrawn for pocket money, or you're just pinched. At the end of the day, the most important thing is, one, have they understood the problem, and have they seen a way forward?
So that's what Lucy was talking about.
Yes.
Before we wind up, there's an aspect of before, you know, you could be my neighbor and meet my child doing something wrong, and you could correct them. How do we balance that now of the people who are not even the core family, getting into family matters? Like before, we used to think a child belonged to a community. So a neighbor could actually find a child and say, what you're doing is wrong, and may punish, and then say, then I'll tell your mother or I'll tell your father. Today, it's leave my child alone. What would be the effect of that?
For me, I would simply say, you're not called to serve everyone. Let people's children stay. I mean, if they have done something wrong that is within your line, deal with that line of yours, and then let the people's children have peace. Because you see, what you call mistakes, to them is fun, you know. Maybe they are spilling water everywhere. They are feeling like doing that. If they spill at your door, then have questions. But if they are spilling at their own door, then their mother is looking at them. This child is trying to learn what is water and how is water fun, you know. So please let people's affairs.
All right, Rose.
For me, I think I'm very traditional, and when I get a child who is doing something wrong, and I expect the same from other parents, if they find my child doing something wrong, it's good if they inform me. And I'll tell you the reason why. You might think that you're bringing your child very well, but let me tell you, you're preparing them to leave home. There's a certain point they'll have to go out there. And if they get that other children who are maybe spoiled, and because of peer pressure, the good things that you've inculcated in them might spoil. So for me, I strive to do the right thing now. You might not agree with me as the other parent, but at the end of the day, for me, I believe I've done the right thing before God, because that is the responsibility I have. And I think this is the advice I like to give to all parents in this generation. It's good if you're another parent may not be mad to say that your child is doing something wrong. It's good to take it up, because I believe it's not because of malice. They want good to come out of them, because we are not living in seclusion. Even now we are living, I'm here with you, I'm here with Pastor Chris. So it doesn't mean that you live in solitude, and that is something that needs to go deeper to this kind of parenting that I don't think it's contributing positively to the society.
All right. Lucy, what's your thoughts?
Wow, I 100% agree with Rose, because, you know, that came from I felt the mom, the motherliness in that. Actually, I thought absolutely. And I would want, when going forward and having children, I would definitely want other parents or even the society, if it's something that genuinely is something that's being done that's wrong by my kids, tell me, inform me, and at that time when you can see it happening, you know, nip it at the bud. You know, a stitch in time will save nine. Perhaps that character that you have seen in my child is something that's going to be detrimental to their overall being. And if it comes from a place of, you know, correcting and helping that person become better and humanity for the good, then absolutely. Of course, you will feel it as a parent when they're telling you. And also, I have to be graceful enough to see that this person is not doing that because they have all these bad intentions for my children. No, no, no. It's because they want the best for my child. Just as, you know, if I saw their children doing something wrong, then I would also want, I would imagine that they are mine, and how would I want to go forward?
I think wrong is wrong, right? If you see something wrong, whether it's a child or whether it's an adult, address it, you know. But also demystify between what is wrong and what you think is wrong. Because sometimes there's a thin line. There's a study that says that children are most creative when they learn from their mistakes. Right. If you leave a child in a room with crayons and they color the walls or the floor and stuff like that, they'll understand color, they'll understand beauty. But if you come in and tell them, what are you doing, and you throw them away, they'll withdraw and they'll recluse from expressing their creativity. So there's also a place of discerning what is wrong and what you think is wrong. But at the same time, address the issue. It doesn't hurt to ask, why are you doing what you're doing? You know. And then lastly, demystify correction. In the African society, correction has been synonymous with physical punishment, you know. But correction can also be, do you know that's wrong? Do you know that you shouldn't do that? There's a better way of doing that. That's also correction. But in Africa, kama hujatupia mse slippers, then that's not correction.
All right. Well, that's the time that we have had today on Relationship Wednesday, and to talk to Pastor Chris. Coming up is my style story, yeah, my style story. So don't go anywhere, but remember, keep the conversation going, your thoughts, your views. KTN Life and Style and Talk to Pastor Chris are the hashtag 22840 is our text message number. Send us mail, lifeandstyle@sanamedia.co.ke. So don't go anywhere. After the break, my style story will be up.